And record this session. So to my students, you've got five very special people that are going to chat with you this evening. Not only are they special and wonderful character educators, but they're very kind to me, who have made some huge mistakes in scheduling this meeting. So I sent different messages and panicked last night when I realized that I had invited them initially for tonight, but then I had sent them a reminder that it was next week with the wrong link. So at late last night, I was panicking and sending out emails. And these people that you're going to meet tonight are extremely good character and very kind people because they didn't get mad at me. So, and they came to talk with you. So we have five great educators on with us tonight. They're all very strong character educators. I do have some background information on them, and I'm going to give some brief introduction. But as they each speak, I would really hope that they would tell a little bit more about themselves and their story. Some of these folks have been, I think all of you have been with me at least once before, and with my group. So we have 9 students with us tonight. There's one that should be popping in shortly. All of these wonderful character educators have, been involved for character education for a long time. They have a lot of different perspectives and a lot of talent that comes from a lot of different angles. On my screen, the first one that I see is Jacob Darley. And Jacob he's the principal of the Forest Park Individual Education School here in Joliet, Illinois. This is a magnet school that was founded in 1978. It's built on Raymond Corsini's 4R school concept, which I'm sure he will talk about. But the highlights are, student choice, non-punitive discipline practices, intentional instructional social skills, character ed, and striking a balance of being kind and firm. And one of the things I think that's important is that Jacob is actually a product of the school that he now is principal of. I think it's at 16 years now that you've been at your school?
15 or 16,
15.
far too long for anything that's good and healthy.
And when we get around to talking to Jacob, you'll know that one of the wonderful things is that for the second time, his school has been named as a National School of Character. So he can talk a lot about those 11 principles that we talked about last week. I think the next person on my screen is Dr. Julie Sperry, and I'm sure she can talk a lot about the 11 principles as well. She is a wonderful woman who's dedicated to empowering individuals and communities to flourish through character-based leadership. She designs leadership learning experiences that are rooted in self-awareness and guided by the principles of autonomy, belonging, competence, helping leaders to cultivate cultures where people feel valued, connected, and capable of meaningful growth. Her work centers on the belief that sustainable change begins with adult formation, and her approach to leadership development emphasizes the journal from personal growth, work on me, which you are all used to collective transformation, where we talk about we work. So she supports leaders in learning and understanding who they are. That is important information that really directly shapes how they lead and how they relate and build cultures within their organizations. I'm going to let her tell you a little bit more about some of her other accomplishments, which are very, very long, she has done some wonderful, wonderful work. The next person I see on there is Demetrius Scott. Demetrius has been very kind and has been, again, like many other people, many of ours. He's in his second or third year of principal of Moody Intermediate School. He's thrilled to be there. His wife is a registered nurse, and he has 2 boys, Rodney and Brenton. He has degrees, a lot of degrees, Bachelor of Arts, Music Education, Jacksonville State University, Master of Education, Music Education, Auburn University, Master of Education, Instructional Leadership, the University of West Alabama, Educational Specialist, Instructional Leadership, University of West Alabama, and Doctor of Education, Educational Organization and Leadership at Samford University. Demetrius was a band director before he began and then moving into administration. He then served as an assistant principal, and now he has moved into principal position, and he'll tell you more about his schools. I think the next one on my list is Michelle Navarre. Michelle is a wonderful woman, and she's the founder and executive director of Polaris Charter Academy, which is a nationally recognized EL education mentor school in Chicago. A Golden Apple Award-winning educator and a transformational leader. She has been over 25 years reimagining urban education through character development, deep learning, and authentic student engagement. Under her leadership, Polaris has become a hub for innovation, hosting hundreds of educators to learn its model of project-based learning, restorative practices, and reflection-based teaching. Her work has been featured by PBS NewsHour, Education Week, and in several books, including We Are Crew, Helping Children Succeed, 10 to 25, The Science of Motivating Young People. And in addition, she has won the Silverberg Leadership Award and the Robert F. Kennedy Urban Leadership Award. The next gentleman on my screen is Hank Stanks. And Hank, I need your help here. I'm going to have you start talking first, I think, because I know that you're a principal, but I can't remember where you're at now. And I honestly think you can probably better introduce yourself than I can, other than I know that you're a wonderful educator, and this is not at all your first time coming to help us. So why don't we start with you, Hank?
Sure, thank you. Glad to join. And it's an honor to be in such a fantastic group. Um, I can't wait to hear from some of you guys, especially Jacob. I haven't seen Jacob in a while, but I've been to his school before several years back, and just fantastic opportunity to be here tonight. So thank you. Yeah, I'm Hank Staggs. I'm currently the principal at Creve Hall Elementary School, and just finished up my third year. Literally finished up the third year because I started mid-year 3 years ago. So I've been here 3 years. It's my 33rd year as an educator. I've had a chance to do lots of different things. Half of that time it's been as a school principal in the building. That's probably been, some of the experience that I've enjoyed the most. I've had the opportunity to work in higher ed in several different capacities. I worked for the Tennessee State Department of Education for a bit. I worked for a nonprofit, NIET, for a bit. And that's actually through NIET is where I became the most directly influenced by the character education work. I did character work for years and years as a school principal, but I didn't realize that I was doing it. It was always important that, we have respect in our building. It was always important that the adults model the behaviors that we want to see in our kids, and all those kind of things were important to me. But I didn't really know the terminology or what to call it really until I met the folks at NIT, and we worked with the Kern Foundation, and then met folks like you guys on this call, and I really learned some language to put together with what to call it. And so now, sort of on the back end of my career, we call it what it is, and we talk about character education. Um, I'm happy to entertain questions or Dr. Spellman, kind of whatever you specifically want me to talk about or share. I can certainly share my journey as a principal, and what we've been doing the last couple of years is kind of where I was going to go if that works.
That sounds great. And I think as what I think our people want to hear are, your journey and maybe some of the challenges and successes that you've implemented, because these people on the screen are graduating in about 6 weeks, and many are already applying for leadership positions. And so they really want to hear words of wisdom from those of you that have made it work.
Yeah, thank you. Um, I guess the first note that I would share is to use a character word, and that's courage. And I think in any kind of leadership training or leadership role, you have to be the one who models what you want to see, and one of the great ways to do that is to model courage. The people that you lead are going to need that, and they're going to need to see that in you. And sometimes that's not always easy. And I look at that courage as a growth area for me. Even though I've been doing this 33 years, and every day in a school is different and new and a new challenge. Um, and a specific example that we implemented just this last year, I made a decision to move several teachers in our building. We moved 11 teachers to a new role. Um, Half of those were willing and wanted to do that. Half of them were not. Now that we are, a semester into that, I think everybody's okay. But that took a lot of courage, and not just courage on my part, but courage as a leadership team, and being very transparent with those decisions and all of that. I'm just using that as a quick example of courage that I think all leaders, I would encourage you to think about your own courage and kind of what you're willing to do and say and how transparent you're willing to be. And the more courageous and vulnerable that you can be as a leader, I think it will go a long way, especially into this character work. So in the character work for us, just real quickly as a school, we haven't done much of that prior to my coming. The first thing that I did was try to find out sort of what are we already doing in our school that sort of fits the language. We were a promising practice school last year, which was super exciting. So as the principal, again, having the courage to carry the banner or carry the flag or be the voice of character education. I think if it doesn't come from the principal, it's probably not going to happen. So I went in with that mindset. When I interviewed for the job, I told the superintendent, I told our executive director, this is something that I want to bring. This is something that's now a part of me. I think it's super important. I think it's just as important, if not more so, than the academics that we teach. And so I think the courage, again, to say that, to live that, to be that, to model that, all of those things is where it starts. And then we just look for things in our school that we were already doing. And a lot of that for us was around marginalized or EL students in our school, and so we had some programs going on different things, and so we labeled that with character and some character words, and that's what we did our promising practice around. We also did not have identified core values, so that's another thing that we did. Is we led the charge my first year to identify core values. We named those. I think by now everybody has memorized those and knows what they are. They get tired of me saying it. So I put that on all of our stuff, anything that goes out, emails, memos, letters, call outs. We reference core values all the time. So that we really want to make that part of our fabric, is what we're doing. And then I think the last thing I'll share with you, and again, related back to courage to take those steps, courage to lead, and then also courage to call it out. I think you're going to hear some of these other folks talk tonight about the importance of the adults in the building modeling that. And this last fall, something that we called out as a leadership team was respect, and specifically as an example of that was gossip. And it had come to the leadership team that, hey, we think we have a gossip problem in our school that we should address. And so we addressed that very directly. And I stood in front of the faculty, who I love dearly. I love them all. And I said, look, folks, this is something that as the leader, I'll have to stand in the way of. And so we defined gossip in our school. We said, you know what, this doesn't fit our core values. One of our core values is community. And so to guard our community, we've got to guard ourselves against gossip. Another one of our core values is respect, to be respectful with each other. Another core value is teamwork. So all these things, gossip is a threat to. It's a threat to our core values. So we named that. And we simply, for us, gossip now is anything that you say negative that you're saying to someone who can't help you fix the problem. And that's how we defined it. That's
Oh,
just,
I love that definition.
um, so that has really caught on. And to me, it was just another way, okay, as the leader, I've got to have the courage to stand in the way of anything that's going to be in opposition to our core values. And we always point it back to the positive. We're about community, we're about respect, we're about teamwork, we're about service, and we can name those core values. But I think that courage also is standing in the gap and in the way of things that would threaten our core values. So that's just a couple of minutes. Again, I'm happy to answer any questions or anything like that. And I look forward to hearing from the others.
And Hank, just before we move on, and we may come back to you, just remind our audience here where your school is located.
Oh, sure. We are in Nashville, Tennessee. So I probably sound Southern. That actually is from Alabama, where I grew up. But I'm in Nashville, Tennessee. Creve Hall is one of the Nashville public schools here in the city. We're grades kindergarten through the fifth grade.
Okay. Well, let's go from Nashville to Alabama. Let's go to Demetrius Scott, and we'll hear another little bit of a Southern accent, if that's all right.
Unfortunately, you will, for sure. Hank, what part of Alabama did you grow up in?
Demetrius, I grew up in Florence, Alabama, sort of the northwest corner up
Gotcha.
there.
Okay, yeah, just curious. Hometown's Anniston, so about 3 hours south. But good evening, everybody. Dr. Spellman, thank you so much. I appreciate the opportunity. I love doing these calls, and it's always treat for me. And to the upcoming graduates, enjoy this time. It will fly by, but congratulations to you as you're getting ready to end your journey. And like Hank, I'm looking forward to hearing everybody else. I feel like I'm kind of the lone wolf in some of the accomplishments, but just glad to be with this esteemed panel. Jacob, good to see you. I know we've done a lot of these, so always good to be with you. As Dr. Spellman said, I am serving as the principal at Moody Intermediate in Moody, Alabama. We're about 30 minutes outside of Birmingham in the St. Clair County School District. And our setup is interesting. We are currently a 4, 5, 6 school, and we used to be Moody Middle, and now we are Moody Intermediate. And starting in August, we are going to be grades 3, 4, 5. So I have 2 grade levels that are leaving the building, and I will inherit 2 grade levels from the elementary school. So a lot of planning and things are going on as we get ready to end this school year. So anytime I start one of these, I get the kind of huge aha moment of what I'm about to say, in that in my role, I was the fifth principal in 3 years. And so when you hear that, it's like, oh my gosh, you start thinking, okay, culture issue, things of that nature. And it was coming into a pretty toxic environment, so to speak, because you hear all the things of the 4 schools in Moody. This school was kind of known as the prison, and it had a lot of administrative turnover. And so when I was coming back, I started in this city. I've been in Moody since 2019. I was assistant principal at the high school. Then I went to Thompson High as an AP and then came back for this principal spot. The number one thing when I came in is we've got to fix the culture. And one of the biggest issues is that the faculty, while resilient, was very leery of people. They had put up this barbed wire fence because anybody that came in, they're kind of like, well, you're not going to be here long or something's going to happen. And principals left on very, very different circumstances. And so for me, all of last year was just trying to get people to buy into the process, to understand me. They knew me from the high school, but it was a different seat coming into the principal seat here. And kind of alluding to what Hank was talking about, and I commend that because we've had to shake some things up. I came in and I've got people on my faculty from hiring new people to some 30-year vets of people who had just been used to doing it their way and wanting to do things. And so we, I wholeheartedly agree with Hank in that we had to have some tough, courageous conversations. But I think what has really helped us is that they see that now I'm trying to bring some consistency to this spot. This is my second year. My oldest is in seventh grade. My youngest is in kindergarten. And so I don't really want to move and jump ship, especially when it feels like we've kind of got this thing going in the right direction. And so we got through a great year my first year, and now we're just adding on to things the second year. And we have one of the best faculty retention rates in the city, which is awesome. And we've kind of just tried to focus on changing the narrative that we're not the prison of what everybody thinks that we are, and just wanting to be open and honest with our parents. With the character journey currently, we are in the Hope Institute. We're in year 2. And if you guys have not heard of that, that is housed at Samford University. It is devoted totally to character. And Liz Huntley, if you're familiar with that name, I wrote a great book, More Than the Birds. She is a highly esteemed lawyer on the Board of Trustees at Auburn University. She, along with one of the former Alabama Supreme Court justices, started the Hope Institute. And, you know, you have different years, year 1, year 2, year 3, then you can roll off. We have some amazing speakers to come. I think last year, Dr. Tom Lacona came to speak. We've had Dr. Marvin Berkowitz to speak. And so you get a lot of resources, you get a lot of things and a lot of networking and meet a lot of people. The biggest thing with this character journey is that people have got to realize, and I think Hank alluded to this too, is that a lot of what makes this journey so special is it's not some kind of a fancy program. It's not some type of thing that you're going to just spend money and bring back into. You look at and do a self-evaluation of your building. And there's a lot of things that you're doing in your building that you probably didn't even realize were directly tied into character. And so, and between that and getting everybody, your stakeholders to buy in, those are the huge, huge first steps. We have our core values that everybody's buying into, that we have spread out and put out there. So as we continue to uh, stay on the right direction, and now having to also change our narrative as we become a 3-4-5 school. I'm excited about what year two in the Hope Institute brings, and we're going to go into year three. And it's just been really refreshing that as we are working toward a long-term goal of being, promising practice or a state school of character and eventually a national school of character, that we're taking the baby steps and just one step at a time. And our people are able to see some of the things, and our culture, with just within my second year of being here, has improved uh, drastically. So just some food for thought there.
Thank you, Demetrius. And I'm sure that you were a big moving force behind changing that culture. So talking about the process of self-reflection and self-evaluation, maybe Jacob, that leads maybe to you and to share a little bit about the journey you and your people have been through with the whole journey to become a national school of character.
Sure. I'd be happy to. Thank you again, Dr. Spellman, for having me, and good evening, everybody. Uh, Demetrius and Hank, it's good to see you both. Dr. Speary as well. Always a pleasure. So, yeah, I went to the school that I'm principal at now. It's Forest Park IE School, about 35 miles south of Chicago in Joliet, Illinois. Tiny school, about 250 kids, K to 5. But since the late 70s, we've been a magnet school with the intention of diversifying and pulling from all over the city. So I'm not just a neighborhood school. So with that said, similar to what Hank had said earlier, that we were doing character ed and kind of didn't even realize it. So when I became aware of the Schools of Character program through our local university here, I thought, wow, that really aligns with a lot of what we're already doing. So what was unique about our journey is that we didn't have to start from the ground up. We had our four pillars of the four R's already established and well embedded. They weren't very well defined, but everybody knew, oh, it's a 4R school. It's a 4R school. Um, Part of what we do is not only giving kids grades on their academics, but we grade them on their character as well. So everybody got a 4R report card just as much as they got an academic report card. So when the Schools of Character program came on our radar, we didn't have to, like I say, do too much other than just kind of document what was already going on. So our first year we got promising practice, and in 2017 we were named as an Illinois School of Character, and then in 2020, right before the pandemic, we were named as a National School of Character. Um, but also to echo what's been said before, you as the leader have to have not only courage, but you got to have vision of where you're going and be courageous enough to have that vision and say, these are our core values and we're going to stick to them, and we're going to hold people accountable to stick to them as well. I think the most revealing and interesting thing about our journey is, yay, we got the award and we were a national school character, and 2025 came and it's 5-year designation. And so I said to my staff, we've collected evidence these last 5 years. Let's reapply. Let's see if we can do it again. Well, let's do a book study using Dr. Berkowitz's Primed. So we went through, this will be a nice PD opportunity, and we got about the middle of the book and had to pump the brakes because there were some serious misconceptions about, again, gossip, respect amongst adults. And here we are sitting as this bright shining star in the hill of Joliet to say, oh, National School of Character. And we had some pretty ugly things, some dirty laundry to uncover. So I paused the book study a year and a half ago. It's probably going on 2 now. needless to say, we spent the second half of the year really digging into that one chapter, and it was so interesting to see. While people could mouth and parrot the 4 R's, we had to do some work to really drill down to kind of those collective commitment stage, that collective commitment stage in the PLC process of saying, what are we going to agree to do with one another here? Yeah, we can be respectful to kids, but what are we going to do to be respectful of one another as adults? So, the process is ongoing. You can get the award and you can go through the Hope Institute and they'll, give you the gold star and everything. But unless you have that courage to stick to that vision, it can very easily go sideways. And if it does, you can direct it right back to what your foundation is. So, long story short, we were named again as a National School of Character for 2025. So we'll be good for through 2030, and I'm sure there'll be new new discoveries along the way of other little bugs to work out. But it's okay because everybody knows that I take it seriously, and it's a good way to audit yourself and continually assess where you're at along the way.
Thank you, Jay. Michelle, you've been waiting patiently, and I'm going to keep Julie for the end because she's going to be talking about it from a very top level. So, Michelle, if you don't mind sharing your journey, which has been amazing.
I've been furiously writing down things that I wish somebody had told me when I first stepped into leadership. Uh, so sorry for all my scrabbling in my notes on the side. Hi, I'm Michelle. I am the executive director and the founder of Polaris Charter Academy. We opened our doors in the fall of 2007. I lead a school in the West Humboldt Park neighborhood of Chicago. Um, Kindergarten through eighth grade, 450 students at capacity. We started kindergarten through second grade and grew a grade up every year. When I first organized my oh my God. And I made, just so you know, like I made so many mistakes as a leader. Like we could do a whole panel on like, how did you mess things up? And then what did you do with what you learned from that? I'll be happy. I saw Dr. Scott going, yeah, like I'm down for that panel if you guys want that later on. Um, when I started Polaris, and I taught for 8 years on the 7 years on the South Side before that, so it's my 27th year in education. It was so nice to hear somebody had more years than me because I'm usually the oldest person on the call.
No,
Um,
no, no.
when I first gathered my staff together, we were brand new. I had the luxury of hiring everybody. We didn't talk curriculum at all for the first 3 days that we were together. We talked about what kind of people we wanted to graduate from our school. How were we going to measure success? Like, who were they going to be? And through a series of protocols and work that we did together, we came up with what we call the 5 points of Polaris. It's the first thing we did. Those points are integrity, compassion, being an explorer, a critical thinker, and an active citizen. And then we spent another few days saying, great, what does that mean? What does integrity look like and sound like in an eighth grader? And then we wrote descriptors for each of those points for every grade level. We started with eighth grade and we said, okay, if this is where we want them to land, what does that mean? Who do they have to be in seventh grade? Who do they have to be in sixth grade? Who do they have to be in all the way down? So if you think about integrity, I'll use that as the example. If you ask a kindergartner at Polaris, what does integrity mean? They will tell you it means doing the right thing because it's the right thing to do, even when no one is looking. And so it grows in complexity as we grow. So that's the first thing I would say if I were going to step into leadership again is like, I want a clear vision of who my team and who my school wants our children to be when they graduate from there, because that tells me that sets the course, right, for what we're going to do in our work together. I believe that language matters. I think everybody here would say that, like very deeply matters. And so the other thing that I would say is I spend a lot of time defining things. I would want people to define what achievement means to you. At Polaris, we have an expanded definition of achievement that isn't about a test score. Achievement for us is really about three things: mastery of knowledge and skills, high quality work that children are proud of, and at the center of all of that is character development. And I want to be really clear about something. Um, and that is that character is not something you teach. It's not like kids don't have compassion, right? You have to help them to activate it, right? You have to have them learn how to activate that regularly. Same thing with all of these other things, right? I worry sometimes when visitors come here and they're like, how do I teach that? I'm like, kids already have integrity. Kids are critical thinkers, right? We just have to help support them in keeping that at the forefront. And the other big thing that I would say is, and this is what I do in any school I go to, I ask staff and students to define discipline. What does discipline mean to you? Because this work that we are doing is incredibly difficult work. And if children, when behavior is communication and children are communicating to us that they are struggling in so many places, that definition of discipline is about punitive, right? Like I want to punish this kid to make them change their behavior. And so we clearly define discipline at Polaris as the structures and systems that are designed to support the development of essential social emotional competencies that are necessary to correct and regulate oneself in the pursuit of what is right despite temptation, in order to productively contribute to a better world. That is the definition of discipline here. That is not about, I am going to make you do something because you got in trouble with me. And that foundation comes from Polaris is built around a concept of crew. It comes from an amazing educator named Kurt Hahn. He was the founder of Outward Bound, and there's a famous saying that says, "We are crew, not passengers, strengthened by consequential acts of service to others." And so we organize ourselves around this idea of crew, and that is, if you ask kids what crew means, it's being family. And so when your family is struggling, you don't kick them out. You don't put them out of the classroom. You don't send them home, like away from you, right? And so if you're going to say we're crew and we're in this together and we're going to build, relationships with kids, you can't say except for when it's tough, right? It doesn't work that way. And the other big thing that I would say people come here to learn a lot about is we spend an incredible amount of time with. I have a 19-year, I would say, obsession around reflection practices based on Camille Farrington's work. If you don't know Camille Farrington, she's an amazing educational researcher out of the University of Chicago. She wrote Foundations for Young Adult Success. I think it should be required reading for anyone going into education. And much of that work is touted, but rarely do people talk about the action reflection cycle, especially the reflection piece, which is we have to teach kids how to reflect on who they are as people, who they are as learners, when they make mistakes in very calculated ways. She talks about 5 types of reflection, which are to describe, evaluate, connect, envision, and integrate. And we do ongoing informal daily reflection. We do weekly reflections, those weekly written reflections, both about our character and the work we're creating. Those reflections lead to end of trimester reflections that lead to student-led conferences that lead to in third, sixth, and eighth grade. We have something called passages where children give mini TED Talks about who they are and what they're learning about themselves that become progressively more and more public. By eighth grade, this is an entire auditorium filled with people, and you are talking about how you have grown in your character. And who you want to continue to grow and become as you leave us. Um, the only other things I would say is the same thing that I hear other people saying. We have made huge mistakes. I have seen like things fall apart here more often than not, especially in terms of moments in time where you feel things are like off. And I made the mistake early on of thinking this was a kid problem until I actually talked to students. And then I found out, oh, this is an adult problem. And so the last thing I would really say to everybody is that student culture will never outpace the adult culture of your building. So if you have a student problem, it is highly likely you have an adult problem. And that comes down to even at a classroom level, if you have a teacher who's consistently struggling, if we have one here, the first thing I do is look at lesson plans, right? Have you designed lessons that are respectful of kids, that are worthy of their time? And more often than not, if I have ongoing behaviors in a classroom, it's because the teacher has not designed respectful lessons for kids. So I could go on and I'll stop.
Wise words. I'm sure we'll have more opportunity because I'm sure we'll have some questions. Thank you, Michelle. Julie, the floor is all yours.
Oh, all right, thanks. Well, I know you're all sitting here being like very compliant, passive consumers of amazing nuggets of wisdom that you're getting from these leaders here, right? And I think one of us already said, maybe Jacob was you, I don't know, but gosh, I wish I could go back and like know what I know now and then go back and be that school leader that I should have and could have been. Um, so yeah, so even though you're being passive, like try to grab some of these nuggets out of here because they're going to help you as you move into that school administration role. But just to get you a little active involved, just kind of raise your hand for me. I know there's probably a raise hand button. I don't know, but let's do your physical hand and leave it up for a minute so I can see how many of you currently in the role you serve are in a primarily elementary school. Okay, so maybe three of it, four-ish. I know you gotta decide for yourself how you want to define that. Okay, how many of you think you are mainly in like middle school? You know, that intermediate.
Two.
Okay. And do we have any high school people in the room? All right, Dr. DeWitt, you're like, look, I'm the only high school in here, right? Sometimes, Dr. DeWitt, you're our toughest critics of this work, right? I'm not doing that touchy-feely hand-holding stuff. Well, I'll tell you, as you know, it's way more than that hand-holding stuff. But yeah, so you're graduating soon with your master's, and that's really exciting, right? It's exciting time to get your first job, and hopefully you can learn from the wisdom of others because I was a clueless wonder. I'm gonna tell you. When I was hired in that first principal job, I don't know what they were thinking when they hired me. I can just tell you, I couldn't even, they hired me and I never even saw the school. I couldn't even find the door into the school, just so you know. It's crazy. I was trying all these doors and someone's like, can I help you? And I'm like, I'm just trying to get in. But anyway, it was, yeah. So lots of mistakes. It's a theme you've heard from all of us, and that's okay, right? It's okay. It's all part of your journey. You don't know what you don't know. So anything that you can put into that knowledge is going to help. So ended up being a really great manager of my building. I'm on cuss here for you. I managed the hell out of that place. I'm just going to tell you, right? First one there, last one to leave, 60, 70 hours a week. Management is not true leadership. Okay? Leadership, and every single one of you is a leader. The question is, are you a leader by title or a leader by action? And are you an intentional leader or are you clueless wonder like I was? Leadership, I define with one word to simplify it, influence. How do you use your influence for good? How does that influence inspire others to be their best selves? How are you using your role, whatever it is, whether it's classroom teacher, counselor, assistant principal, dean, central office, middle management, doesn't matter. How are you using your influence to help people to nourish the flourishing of human goodness, as Dr. Berkowitz would say? How are you contributing to that flourishing? How are you, in your role, helping create spaces and places for others to be their best selves? Do you know how to do that? How do I do that? How do I become aware and be intentional about doing these things? And what sort of actions do I need to do to create spaces and places for humans to flourish? Right. So I start there because people always are quickly, as you've heard from everyone else say, we want to jump to the kids. We're going to create this amazing school for kids. And of course, that's why we're in this. However, it starts with the adults. We are the problem. We are also the solution. And that's a hard pill to swallow for some people. And as leaders, that's something that you're going to help lead that train on. What is the adult culture? As you heard some of them, we had to really stop. You stopped at the prime book in the middle because you're like, whoa, right? Me too. Like once my clueless wonderness was forced, I'm going to tell you, but my superintendent was like, you will do this or bye bye. You're going to go to what then was called LACE, the Leadership Academy and Character Education, led by Dr. Berkowitz. I'm fortunate enough to be in St. Louis, where the Center for Character and Citizenship is, which Marvin is the leader of that. So I didn't want to go. I had to be out of my building 12 days out of the school year. I was too busy, guys, managing the heck out of that place. I don't got time to be gone. I'm busy. That was my theme. I'm busy. Forced me to go. And I will tell you that it changed my life personally and professionally. Anytime you get opportunities such as this, such as that, do it. All right. It forced me to think about who was I. That was a really hard thing for me, peeling back those layers of really, because I'm like, what do you mean, who am I? I'm busy. I'm a principal. I'm a partner. I'm a mom. What? There's my paper, 3 sentences. What do you mean, who am I? Right. And so that me work that Dr. Spellman says you guys work on is so critical. That inward look, that self introspection. You have to do the me so that we can be the better we that we get to. So I mean, Marvin has been an important part of my journey and just where I am now as a person. When I got my doctorate, he was my mentor on it. Pushed me, made me cry many times, but you need a mentor. If you ever have someone who's going to be honest and hold that mirror up to you, you got to do it so you can be your best self. Um, and eventually after my 5 years of clueless wonderings, I came back from this leadership academy, and I think my staff thought I'd been abducted by aliens and replaced by somebody else. Because I came back and I'm like, whoa, we're doing this and we're doing this, and the kids are going to do this. And guess what? The kids are planning the first 3 days of school. And guess what? The kids are going to do this, right? I came back just fired up. Every time they'd come, I'd be like, she's coming back again. Beware. What is she going to try to do? Wackadoo. Because it was so opposite of just my management, right? But what I learned through that is, ooh, the staff's got to do some of this work. And so I started sending them to these experiences. We visited any and every national school of character that we could. And I took the entire staff, not a little group. I took my secretary, I'd take the nurse if she could go, I would take everybody. Let's go to these schools. And I think, like Michelle, at your school, we'd be going, what are the look fors? When you have your core values and what should you be looking for developmentally across this? Do we see these in action, right? And so you can tell people something, but when they go see it and experience it for themselves, it becomes a reality. So that really helped get more staff on board. And fast forward, I mean, we became, State School of Character, National School of Character. And again, it's not about the award, it's about the transformation of your school. Because the award is just a sign on the wall. What does it really mean? And you're right, you're right, it's a forever journey, right? You have to keep doing it. You're like, we have arrived. You will have never arrived if you stop intentionally doing this work. Some of the things that you've heard themes from everybody is staff culture, number one, the adult culture. You cannot ignore that, right? Leadership matters. I work with I have a teacher academy in character ed that I lead now, and these teachers go and do these amazing things within their classroom, and they're frustrated because leadership doesn't always get what is this character and culture work, right? It's not a program, it's not a thing that you just do on Wednesdays or on half days. Um, it's a whole just who are we and how do we be, which is what you've heard from some of the other leaders explaining. It's like it's just who are you, right? And how are we intentionally creating conditions for everybody to be their best selves? So staff culture, you got to have leadership for this to happen. And as Dr. Scott said, the other thing is you got to have stable leadership. It's really hard when there's just a revolving door of leaders. Before you can get anything sustainable at a deep level, you've got to be committed. You got to have a clear shared mission. You have to, right? And if your staff can't, if you don't know what your school's mission statement is, nobody's living it. It exists on the wall, it exists in your handbook or on your website, whatever, right? Same thing with the core values. I would ask each everybody, how did you establish those core values? Did the adults come up with it? And for some people, it's deeply rooted in the history of their school. These are the four pillars, et cetera. I get that. But a lot of times it's like I had to co-create our core values. And it took 6 to 9 months to do it right because we had voice from the students, from the parents, from the community, from the staff. And we just kept doing this process with these different groups over and over and over again until we came up with a list, definitions, what do they look for, if we're going to bring these alive, and then everybody voted on, right? So there's a way to do this if you're going to live these core values, because you have to live them. They can't, again, just be pretty words that make the word pride, right? Everybody says, well, we're the Lions. We need core values that mean pride, Pride. And I'm like, it doesn't work that way, right? Is that truly who we're going to be here at this school? So staff culture, leadership, core values, and the fourth foundation of this flourishing communities, flourishing spaces is what I call, for educators, I call it the ABCs, because you know everything first, the ABCs. But ABCs, it's really about self-determination theory. Those of you that study psychology, I also have my master's in counseling, and I live in that world of the SDT, the self-determination theory, which is where humans are motivated to be their best selves. If you can create the conditions for autonomy, belonging, and competence to live, breathe freely and intentionally. So think about through your role right now, do you feel autonomous? Do you have voice and choice? Do you feel like you belong and you're connected? That doesn't mean that we're besties with everybody, but that I at least feel like I belong in this community and I bring value. And that's the C piece, the competence. Do you feel like you're using your strengths and that you have purpose and that you bring value to your role and to the environment? So what would the other adults in your space say about feeling autonomous, belonging, and competence, right? Does staff feel that? We have to intentionally create these things for the adults, for all staff, bus drivers, cafeteria workers, everybody. If we're not doing it for the adults, we can't just say, well, what does that look like in the classroom to create a space where the students feel empowered, right? Rather than saying, oh, we're going to have class dojo points, or rather than saying we're going to have RRR coupons that you trade into the school store on Friday for a bag of junk from Oriental Trading Company, or you're going to get a candy bar. Hey, I've done all these things. Clueless wonder. So I feel like I can say this because I'm like, I did it. Tell you, middle school kids took those little RRR bucks. They had their own little underground system going on of they made their own, because this is how they showed us, you guys are ridiculous trying to control us with these little pieces of paper. I'm just saying, I love it. Like my lessons of shame that have helped me grow so much. Because they could care less if their name was drawn on Friday and they got that bag of crap. But they were like, so we're going to show you. I mean, it's like, again, the stories we could tell about the things we've all done wrong, but how we grow and learn from that. So wherever you go, wherever you are now, wherever you go as leaders, I want you to think about how you can use your influence to really focus on creating a space and place for the adults to flourish first, How do you grow leadership and leadership teams? It can't be a solo leader. There's got to be a team of people who truly, deeply get this, get what it means to create spaces and places for people to flourish and be their best selves. If you want to look at Maslow's hierarchy, at the very top of it is self-actualization. Self-actualization to me is flourishing and being your best self. Go back and look at all of the things that lead up to being able to self-actualize. Within all of those layers are the ABCs, is self-determination theory. If those aren't happening on a regular basis, you're never going to be your best self. Others aren't going to be their best self, meaning you're not going to flourish. I would say when you're having it, when adults or students are having issues, if you unravel it to the root cause, I'm going to tell you 95% of the time, it's because they either felt their autonomy was violated. You didn't listen to me. I had no choice. You're forcing me. Compliance feels bad. Or I feel like you don't care about me. I don't belong here. Or I'm feeling incompetent. Or I'm bored out of my gourd because you're not raising the bar for me to really engage deeply in what I need. Usually an A, B, or C is violated for adults or for students when they're having a meltdown, a struggle, a disagreement. So think about that in the power of the ABCs. And I will tell you, it's creating spaces and places where people flourish is critical. Culture it's visible and it's invisible, and it's a very powerful thing because culture alters and aligns your behavior. And sometimes you don't even know it. I often do this little exercise. I say, for example, I've gone to many different wedding ceremonies, which have different traditions and different religions. But when I go in there, I learn by quickly assimilating my behavior to the behavior of those around me, right? Think about when you go to a sporting event. Oh, well, I'm supposed to, it's not written anywhere, but I know if I go to a St. Louis Cardinals game, I'm supposed to wear red. I'm supposed to cheer. I'm supposed to do the wave. I'm supposed to do this, right? These are just higher vision of how culture, we alter and align our behavior. So when people walk into your space and place, into your school, how is their behavior altered and aligned? Is it altering and aligning it in ways you want it to be? Or are there these hidden agendas like, oh, if we go into the workroom, we know everybody's going to be bitching in there, right? Or I've had younger teachers tell me before that our mentors and some of the teachers that have been here longer have told us that we have to stop volunteering so much to do things, is that's not the way we do things here, and it makes them look bad. And I'm like, oh, right? But that's a lot of message about how the culture of that school alters and aligns behavior. And so as leaders, you have to assess that. You got to get a handle on it. And just it is what it is. And it's like that narrative of who are we and how do we be currently at our school? Does everybody see it and feel it? And what's the great things about our current story of who we are? You honor the past, but is this how we want it to define us now? And who do we want to be moving forward? And how do we get there? Through a focus on staff culture, helping the adults be their best selves, leaders that can do that and know what to do, sharing this clear daily mission and core values that guide us every step of the way. And I love it. The examples you guys had, decisions are made based on our core values. This is your guide rails that keep you moving towards where you want to go, and through creating conditions for the ABCs to flourish. So I work, I guess I should say, what do I do? People will say, so what do you do? I'm like, I build the capacities of leaders to be their best selves so that they can go out and create spaces and places where other people flourish. That is my passion. It's what I love to do. I'm so fortunate that I get to do it because of my whole journey as a leader in public schools for 30 years. And now I get to do what I love to do at a nonprofit called Character Plus in St. Louis, thanks to Marvin and his work. And now Character Plus, we've also acquired character.org, which is the national and international character organization that certifies your state and national schools of character and promising practices. So watch out, guys. The forum's coming back fall 2027. I want all of you there, right? Because we want all of us to just convene together and be able to talk about ways to continue to further this. Yeah, and I get to work a lot now through how I met Dr. Spellman through the Kern work and being at their convenings. So as you young leaders grow into bigger more mature leaders, as you ever get an opportunity to join a Kern convening, I highly recommend it. Um, yeah, again, lots, lots of great stuff. I've got all sorts of strategies and ideas. I get to visit hundreds of schools and see amazing stuff that puts really what I did pales in comparison to what I did back in the day to the great things happening in your schools now. But remember, it's just about how do we nourish the flourishing of this human goodness and create spaces and places for that to happen. So
That's perfect. Well, let's segue to see what questions people have. I promised you just an hour, so just a couple of minutes for questions, but I'm sure there are some questions that have been percolating while I think my people have been very polite listening. Just introduce yourself and pop up with questions. There has to be a question or two.
Hi, I'm Mary Eisenbrown. I'm a second grade teacher in a primary building, so K-1-2. We currently have PBIS, so Positive Behavior Incentive Systems, in place in our district and building, and we have a program called Second Step. So, as a person who is considering trying to be an assistant principal and loves the idea of character education, how would you represent this to, let's say, a superintendent or your district about like this kind of direction if they're not looking to take on something else or a different initiative? How do you approach this, like to kind of bring this character education in, although they might say, "Oh, we already have PBIS, we already have SEL and Second Step." Well, what are you looking to bring in? How would, I guess my question is, how would you say you could try to bring in more character education without saying it's taking on a whole different program or a whole different way if your district feels, no, we already have something in place?
Anyone care to answer?
The old adage is the character is not something to add to the plate, it is the plate. So I think it would be kind of a philosophical discussion that you'd probably have to have.
yeah, you're right, Jacob. We get that a lot. It's like we don't have time for this. It's just another thing. It's not a program. It's second steps. I never put down any programs like second steps. There's great things with PBIS. I love the matrices. It brings clarity around behavior expectations. We just try to help wean off the tangible rewards for it. Like Leader in Me has great stuff, Character Counts has great stuff. Those are programs though, and this isn't about a curriculum. It's about how do we be. I would well, like when I work with my teachers in the teacher academy, it's like, how do we get some of the leaders that have like the locus of power to come to an experience? I don't like to call it a PD because it's an experience where people make meaning. And so we have those conversations, Jacob, when you can get these people at the room, right, and seated at a table and have conversations about what does it mean to you to be your best self, right? How does it feel? What does that look like intentionally? It's like building awareness. I always say we have to build awareness because I didn't know any of this stuff either, right? I was forced. So Mary, you're going to go in there as a teacher and say, you need to have these experiences, right? So um, I don't have the clear-cut answer for you, except who are the people that you think would sit down and start having conversations with you, right? And I'd be interested to know, like Demetrius or Michelle or Jacob, what do you think are like a book that you would have them perhaps start with? The primed book is one example. One that for me, which Michelle, I really thought you were going to bring up, was Ethic of Excellence by Ron Berger, right? That one really caught on to my staff because it's a teacher talking about this through the academics, right? How they be, and we all wanted to be excellence. Like our mission statement was to achieve excellence in both academics and character every day. That was our mission statement at my school.
Julie, I
Um,
was just going to talk about it. That's so funny. You're
oh,
re you're
I
reading my
love it.
mind right
Yeah,
now.
yeah.
Um,
Um, The 11 principles is another good, it's a great self-audit of just where are we? Do we do these 11 things? Even if you never want to be a national school of character, I don't, it helps it see it as a framework if people that need that lens, but I'll let somebody else share.
Hey, Mary, I think one of the things I would want to know with curiosity, not with like judgment at all, is why people like why did schools decide to start implementing those? Like what were they hoping to get from that? And are they getting that from that? And is there another way to get it? If they're not getting the results they wanted or they're getting partial results, I'm a huge fan of the pilot approach, especially with teachers, right? Of like, you might have some teachers who love second step, and you might have some who just don't. And asking your administration, like, hey, what if I took these teachers who aren't implementing that well and we try some other things, right? And you have your idea in this approach. And um, I think We Are Crew, Not Passengers is a great, or the We Are Crew book. Um, I was looking to see if I have it on my bookshelf right now. Also written by Ron Berger is like a really great way to think about how to structure your day in a crew setting. But a pilot is like small, right? But what happens is you start to get results and teachers talk to each other. So I'd find somebody who is an influencer in your building, and I'd find somebody who really dislikes what's like this program, and and so you find your early adopters, and then they start to talk in that room where people are bitching and moaning, and then somebody realizes they're not bitching and moaning so much. Like, why is that? And then you see how that bleeds into all the other parts of your day where kids are learning more, kids are sharing more, the cognitive load has shifted, and kids are engaged in and how it impacts all the other parts of your day. So I would be one, curiosity, why? What are we using this for? What are we trying to get out of it? And who doesn't want it so that you can push a little, nudge,
Thank you. Thank
just
you.
nudge.
I want to be cognizant of the time.
And that may all blow up in your face, Mary. Welcome to leadership.
Any other last minute questions before I thank our guests and let them be on their relaxing for the evening? Okay, well, if other questions come up, I know how to reach these people, so I want to thank you, please, so very, very much, Julie and Demetrius and Hank and Michelle, and I know Jacob had to leave, he had another obligation right now. You're so generous with your time, and you're such good models of what leaders with character are like. So thank you so very much, and God bless, and we'll see you in summer when the next group's coming up.
Good luck on your
Congratulations, everyone.
journeys.
Yep. Thank you.
And if anyone wants to come visit, come on down.
I'm not sure if Hank is frozen or if he's still with us. Looks like he's frozen. Yeah. Okay. All right. You've been listening very graciously, and I'm sure there are some things to talk about, but I think you should take a break first. So let's turn off cameras and take a 10-minute break and come back at 6:15, and we'll pick up with the conversation and see what's happening next. Okay? Okay, everybody's popping back in. So initial reactions, thoughts, feelings, things you agreed with, things you disagreed with, questions you might have that you didn't want to ask them, but you can ask me.
I thought it was interesting that all of them talked about, or a majority of them talked about how they kind of looked at what was already happening and what was already going on in their buildings and realizing that they were already doing character education without putting a label on it. And I think that's so important as we, as leaders, start new initiatives and things like that within our buildings and how presenting it that way as like, look at all the things that we are already doing. We're just going to tighten this up a little bit. We're going to give a name to it. We're going to start some common language to use within our buildings with our students so that they understand what it is that we are doing and the why behind it. I think that helps with the notion of like, oh, it's just another thing. It's another thing to add to our plate. And I loved that it's not another it is the plate. It's not another piece on the plate, but it is the plate. And I like wholeheartedly agree with that. Being in a school that does character education, our character education comes first, and then things like second step, we do Go Zen, we do different like SEL umbrella topics that just is added into our character education. So character education is kind of that overarching umbrella with everything else. So
And that's
I
a good
just
way. Yeah, that's a good
I
way to
like
think
that
about it
connection.
as being the umbrella, right? And it being the plate, right? So and everything
Yes.
is just something on there. And I think, that like you said, it's interesting that they often that there was a common theme with all of the different speakers, and they don't get together before this. They don't know who else is going to be on because I send out a blanket invite to see who's available and who can come because different things and at the last minute things can happen. I mean, there was a really great gentleman from Boston that was from New York, from the Bronx that was supposed to be on tonight, and something happened at his school, and he had to cancel at the last minute. So I kind of cast a wide net because I know that when I'm asking them 2 months ahead of time, that anything can happen in the life of a leader, right? So things can change as they move on. I think some of the things that are interesting that I think was good for you to hear is that they all talked about different mistakes that they'd made and that how the journey is never really finished. Um, and like Demetrius is a great example of coming into a school that's really a tough situation and having to really first just change the culture before he can get anything done. And they need to see him as invested because they're people that feel like, well, if you're the fifth principal in 3 years, nobody's going to stay and help us kind of thing. So I don't envy him, but I think he's a great guy to handle that. And I think he's got that fortitude that he'll do it. Jacob is kind of on the other side. He's been there 15, 16 years, and he actually went to school at that school. So he lives and breathes what's going on there. But yet he was very honest that, they had achieved that goal. And then by the time it was time to renew it, they realized we're not that anymore. We have to go back and look at ourselves again, which I think is powerful. And then you've got Michelle, who started the charter school herself, so she started it with her passion and things that she was doing. And then you've got Hank. Hank had been an elementary teacher, and then he'd gone out and he'd done, work, with, a lot of different places. He even worked at the state level before he decided to go back into being a leader in his school. Um, Julie is a character. She's very interesting. She's very knowledgeable and very honest about the fact that she really wasn't a great principal to start with, right? As she kept saying. But she did such a journey of work on herself and has spent so much time on it. And I don't know if you're familiar, but remember the 11 principles and the National School of Characters and the State School of Characters, that all came under character.org. And that's now been shifted to her venue of Character Plus because Dr. Schwartz um, he retired this year. And so they went through a whole transition of moving everything from Character Org over to Character Plus so that nothing would be lost. But Arthur needed to retire. So it was really exciting to see it come to Character Plus. My very first day at North Central was actually was the 1st of August, the first day of my contract. I was in St. Louis. They sent me to St. Louis before I even was going to set foot on campus to meet with Dr. Marvin Berkowitz and the people that were working there with the Lace Academy. They've had an impact there for a long time, and you'll find many, many more schools in that St. Louis area, St. Louis, Missouri area, to who are really invested in that character. And you'll see that many, many of their principals have gone through that LACE Academy, which is a leadership academy. It's now evolved, and they do it sometimes in Wisconsin, but it's every year. It's held and it keeps continuing to function there. But it's just interesting, I think, for you to see people from across different schools, different cities, different parts of the country that are all trying to do this good work. and that, are willing to share their time and talk about it. Um, were there any questions that came up that you wanted to ask about that?
I was gonna say I kind of piggybacking off of what I think was who was just talking, Sarah. Um, and maybe this was in the asynchronous work we did this last week, but how kind of having if you have the teachers kind of come together and take a look at like where do these characters like what how can I emphasize a certain character aspect in my subject like where and like what speaks to me. I think that I don't know, I've been thinking a lot about that this last week and like how I don't know, I was thinking from my classroom like okay, like how would this fit into mine, like where which aspect of character kind of fits into my little bubble here and kind of like what Sarah was saying, but more specific for like the subject area. Like I thought that was really neat and kind of a really good way to like um enter character in a way that's really all encompassing for the whole school and not like another program, but like we're already doing these things, let's bring that out in a way that like you're passionate about and in your subject area that kind of in a natural way in the
And that's
classroom.
actually the process we went through at North Central when I came. That was the process that I led. We started with, okay, we've got this grant that's talking about character education for leaders. And they had written the grant before I came, and then I was hired as, as part of the awarding of the grant. But we sat down and looked at where are we already really doing this, but we're just not naming it. We're not labeling it. We're not being intentional. It's just it, but we know it's happening. And for me, being an outsider coming in to a faculty that was pretty well established, that was, of course, very interesting, right? So, starting with what you're already doing really well is a really important piece. And I've gone, in the years that I've been doing this now, I've gone to several other institutions, to help them do the same kind of work, build it in their colleges and universities. And we always start with, you have to start with what's already there. And then you have to look at, much like Michelle talked about, what is it? We sat down and said, what is it we want the people who finish this educational leadership program to look like? What do we want them to know? What are the skills and what are the competencies and what's the character development? What are the virtues and values we want them to have? And then you start building backwards and then putting it into courses and seeing where there's overlap and doing your curriculum work. But it's very interesting. One of the things I want to show you just for a minute, just to emphasize, because I know you're going to be doing some work on, both on your project as a team and also your individual projects. But I'm going back, this is last week. This is our week one. I want you to remember that there's a lot of resources here. So this section is a lot of information that's of things that are available from the Jubilee Center. Grand Canyon has a huge character education section for resources. When we look down here, they talked about Primed. I don't know if you've read Primed in any of the other book studies that you've been through, but in this particular folder, you'll see there's a lot of material in here that there's a video that actually gives you an overview of the primed, and it's called, I think it's really important because it's called 6 Design Principles for School Improvement. And a lot of schools start with reading that, like Jacob talked about. If you're talking about connecting it to your school improvement plan, it can be really powerful. The other thing I want to remind you, and I will update this in week 2. Let's see, did I open this yet for you? Probably not. Okay. When you go into this one for week 2, I'll update the names of who was there, but there's a couple of things. One of the gentlemen that couldn't join us tonight is Dr. Gregory Moore, and he's also in Alabama. I think he's in Auburn, Alabama. And there's actually an interview with him. It's only about 15 minutes long with one of my colleagues in the current family circle from Samford University. And it's an excellent interview where he really is talking about what's happening in his school with character education. Jacob has given us materials in the past, and he put some more into the chat, which I will move in here today as well. There's also, some reports that you can look at. There are different links at character.org. If you click that link now, it will take you to Character Plus, but there's links to different places. There's also the Hope Institute and there's also information about the Lace Academy. This is something that Michelle talked about a couple of semesters ago. And then we listed some nice books, and I'm going to add some of the books they were talking about there today. But remember that one that she did mention about Foundations for Young Adult Success. So there's a lot of materials that are here that you can draw on. You're welcome to download and use the links and explore them, but make sure you take advantage of the materials and resources that are there. Once you officially graduate, your graduation will be listed on your degree. I think it'll probably be May. And after that, you lose access to Canvas and you lose access to your North Central email. So spend some time with this and the other classes you've been through and download things that you want to take with you. Make sense? Okay. So you had a very interesting presentation, I hope, on Bronfenbrenner's ecological systems theory, which I'm sure you looked at the title of it and said, what in the name of God is she making us do now this time? You also talked a little bit and learned a little bit more about vulnerability, even though I know we talked about that with Brene Brown in 500. And then you had a very interesting, I think, hopefully, article that talked about, and what probably isn't one of your easier reads, but it was an article that really talked about the importance of leader character and leader competence. So I'm hoping you took nice notes on all of those. I'm going to pop you into breakout rooms, and it's 6:27. So let's see, if you spend about 10 to 15 minutes in each section, if somebody's kind of a timekeeper and keeps things moving, that would take us, that would be a good time to kind of aim for. If I see your conversations, dwindling, I'll pull this back sooner. So any questions before I pop you into groups? You could at least smile and let me know you're alive. Come on, Beth, we can get it. We can power through. Okay, give me 1 minute. I should have done the breakout rooms earlier and I didn't. I apologize. I ran to put dinner on, so.
Does it matter what order we go in, or it's whatever we want to start with if we want to talk about the vulnerability or
It's completely up to you, whatever you choose. Just make sure you hit all three.
and then do the week 2 discussion questions then, just kind of follow those?
Yes, please. And then if there's more, but at least for sure touch on those.
Okay.
And I'll be popping around. Okay, I'll see you in a few minutes.
For the Dare to Lead book, I
That's right.
think.
That's
Yeah.
exactly right.
Yeah. So I feel like I've definitely like read a lot about like Brene and a lot of her, I guess philosophies of ideas and things like that, which I do find really interesting. But yeah, that's kind of how I just
That's
defined
that's
vulnerability.
the Dare to Lead. I same thing.
Hmm.
I said it's being open emotionally, being able to apologize, when you know that you're wrong and being able to admit that's being vulnerable. And I even put the note, it's the center of difficult emotion. But it also kind of, encompasses other emotions. Like we need vulnerability in order to feel other emotions too. And so I remember like that was kind of part of the concept. And that how vulnerability and empathy go hand in hand. So
Hmm.
I kind of made note of that. Do you guys want to go on to the second question, or does anybody else have anything to add?
The only thing I was gonna add was I agreed obviously with the same thing as you, both of you, but it really made me think about like true connection, like dropping your armor and like truly connecting with the people around you. And it made me think about like the leader that I'm working under right now. I think she thinks she's being vulnerable. Um, but she'll say things like, I know how you guys feel. Like, I don't want to do this either. And she'll anytime there's something new or something where like teachers are upset about something. And I, as working under her for my internship, it felt like she was truly trying to connect with the staff. That's like just what I kept thinking of watching this video.
Oh, so it made you think of your own building leader and applying like the vulnerability you see or don't see in certain scenarios with her. That's
And
interesting.
how it can be used in not a constructive way or in a way she thinks she's being vulnerable, but really
Kind of think.
that's not like authentic.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. You
You're
kind of
not moving the like if you're going to be vulnerable with your staff, it should be to like move you guys forward or to like
Mhm.
make something more positive. And I've seen it used the opposite.
gotcha. Okay.
Interesting.
Hmm. The next one is what beliefs do you hold around vulnerability? Did you grow up seeing vulnerability modeled? I think that's a great question.
To answer the first part, I feel like vulnerability is or can be a strength rather than like a weakness.
Mhm.
Um, and I think that in terms of like growing up seeing vulnerability modeled, like I don't know, it's kind of maybe not as I don't really recall too much to be honest, but like I don't know, what you were just saying, Beth, kind of was like making me think for myself like about like my experience with my mentor and she's not like how your principal is where she'll be like like I know this sucks kind of like she doesn't say stuff like that but I think she is pretty authentic and like when she's sharing but it's not emotional if that makes sense like how sometimes leaders like express it in an emotional way like if they're comparing their experience I feel like my principal is just more like direct. I don't know. So I don't know. For the second part of that question, I would say like I don't really think that I had positive models of vulnerability.
Okay. Interesting. I know I'm trying to think like what I can because I liked your belief about it too. Like it shouldn't be viewed.
Kids products.
Totally.
Totally.
Yes.
Hi, Dr. Spellman. We'll keep chatting, but Darlene had to go get her pizza out of the oven real quick.
Yeah.
Those are important things.
Yes. We kind of wrapped up the article. I didn't know. I'm kind of curious. Are you good with going into I'm
You
gonna
wrapped up the article in 5 minutes? Wow.
well, listen, we didn't have really good. It was a lot for us.
It was.
It
It
was a
was the,
little, go
yeah.
ahead.
No, it was like the last thing that I did. And so I think my brain at that point, if I remember correctly, my brain was just like on it was one of those where I was like pouring in and things are just overflowing. So I wasn't really like absorbing and taking in a lot of the information. I just kind of
Well,
Well,
we did talk.
let me
Go ahead,
just
Dr.
ask you
Spellman.
about like, what do you really think about, leader character and competence? What's the connections?
Well, I would like to say that one of our speakers today made a connection for me, and that's what I was talking about.
yes.
Okay.
Sorry if I'm totally off base, Dr. Spellman, because that could happen often. I'm having not really an existential crisis, but I'm trying to figure out my purpose lately with in my work because it's just a lot of away from the students and families. But I really liked how she just talked about the competence and the value and purpose and belonging. So like those values that we have, like belonging with like we belong, right? And that how that directly impacts that competence piece. Because I think that's, and this could be totally off what you're asking us, but that is what's been like making me question my competence lately. Like, is what I'm doing bringing value? Is it like, am I kind of part of the big picture, our vision, like my work? So That's just something that came to mind. And just to be clear, I could be totally wrong right now, but that is just something that stood out to me from Dr. Perry and then the idea of competence in the article.
So what has shifted in your role that
Hmm. What has shifted is there's just, we keep saying we're prioritizing initiatives, but we keep adding initiatives. So I said, I told the group that I just feel further away from, I think, the kids and families. So it's feeling less valuable, but like it's somebody still has to do the work. So we're piloting, which is Ames Web. We currently use FastBridge, so that spent a lot of time there. I'm doing a lot of like our conversations around attendance letter. I put together an attendance letter and a proposal of when we might use it. It's like I don't know why. It just feels like I'm not directly impacting students and families, but I am helping guide the decisions. Like I said, no more tier one attendance letters because I don't want to send every single family an attendance letter and then you're going to send it to a family that has like homebound medical illnesses happening and then they get this letter and it's a terrible feeling, right? So I'm part of some of the decision making lately, but it just feels, I don't know, further removed from it all.
Mhm. Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Well, it sounds like you're in a, pretty much all day leadership role, right?
Yeah.
But you're kind of middle management. You're kind of taking
Yes.
directives from above and you're executing them and you're kind of I call it being monkey in the middle, you know.
Yes, I wrote down like agency. I think did you talk about autonomous? Like agency and decision making lately. I'm like, can I put this together? Nobody's approving. Can I approve? And then I sit there and then what did I spend hours doing?
Yeah. And that would be a very frustrating feeling, yes. Yeah.
But it does question like competence, right? Like,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah, I think that the article really is more, it talks about competence, but it's talking about the importance that your competence has got to be really tied into your character, right? And
Yeah.
I think she talked about it. I think it was Julie that did the autonomy, belonging, and competence as well.
Yeah.
So I think you're right. I think it's complex. And I know that's a heavy article, but it's when you have time, you know, when you're not tired, take a look at some of it again because there's some real good information in there about that. It's comes from kind of a business viewpoint, which we've talked about way back in 500. There are still many things to learn from leaders in different kinds of roles.
Sure.
And one of the authors, Mary Croissant, is an acquaintance of mine, and she's at the Ivy Business School up in I think it's actually it's in Canada. It's just over by the falls, anyway, above the Niagara Falls in that area. But she's done a lot of work with that, and she's created and written other books about leadership that are things that you've seen me draw from as we go along. But yeah, yeah, you sound like you're ready to move on to the other pieces. Okay, I'll check in on you later.
I also said that, like the connection between the leadership theory, the character, and the competing values. I thought that those were interesting. And then thinking through that through the different types of leadership, kind of just.
Hey guys, I'm so sorry. My husband's on the way to my daughter's concert and I'm worried he's lost because it's at a different middle school. I will be right back.
Please don't lose him.
Don't let him get lost.
And then I also noted like the additional leadership theories that were there, like the spiritual, responsible, socialized, and then leader behavioral integrity. Thought those were interesting.
Yeah, he went to the wrong middle school. I told him the other one. He's trying his best.
He gets an A for effort.
It's been a wild day. Doctor's appointment, percussion lesson out of the time it's normally in, jazz band concert at a different school 20 minutes away. It's a whole day.
Yeah.
Musical rehearsal. Could we add any more? I don't know. Then the doctor's appointment ran long. We couldn't get the other kids from school, calling my mom because I'm at musical rehearsal.
Breathe. Just breathe.
Yeah, I am. I'm just like, okay, what's happening?
You're in the easiest part now.
I know, right?
Just talking about our virtues and such.
Yes.
So what did you tackle first? Was it
we tackled the vulnerability with the Brene Brown.
Okay.
Yeah. which I love vulnerability, by the way. I really do. We were saying how like, like when you're vulnerable, well, and um Ellen and I were saying how like we are both like the first ones to be like, yep, we messed up, and like I like it because I feel like it opens the doors to other people feeling like they can share, their vulnerabilities, and then you can connect that way and kind of come together to help each other out and not be like in it alone, and just feeling like you're failing at everything. Like I really feel like it helps you kind of.
Well, I'm a prime example of it because, as I told you in the beginning, I booked all those speakers, 2 months ago and for January 15th. And then January 6th, I sent a gentle reminder and thank you so much. And here's a link for January 22nd. And I would never have caught it, um, except that the one gentleman from New York in the Bronx contacted me late yesterday, said, I'm so sorry for the late notice, but I cannot make it tomorrow night. And I went back and I looked at because he had kind of replied to that last email. I went back and I looked at it and I went, I sent everybody the 22nd and a link for the 22nd. And then I thought, oh my God, what am I going to do? They're all going to come on the 22nd. And, I can easily flip something. And then I started thinking about it and I thought, I don't know if they're going to.
If they're going to think the original email or that, yeah.
So I had to sit down and email every single one of the people I invited last night and say, I am so embarrassed. I totally messed this up. I originally asked you for your graciousness to come on the 15th, and then I sent you an email with a link for the 22nd, which is not when we're doing this. And then I put in there the link for the 15th and said, please let me know if you can still join us. And if not, I understand and I'll, plan B. And, five of them graciously got back to me over the course of the next 24 hours and came. So, but yeah, like talk about egg on your face, right? So vulnerability is, it comes in many different forms and we're never without it. But I won't interrupt your conversation. I'll let you keep going.
Yeah, then we talked about the Brenner's ecological systems theory, and now we're on to the
article about the
article.
competencies.
Oh, you're moving fast. You went through Benner and that in 15 minutes. Okay.
Yes. We just started this next one though.
Okay. Tell me, just fill in a little bit. Give me a little idea. What did you think of Brenner's theory, or are you already familiar with it?
I mean, it kind of, yeah, I was not familiar with it. It reminds me of like a more kind of fleshed out nature versus nurture situation.
Yeah, it's like I don't know, I was like systems of control, right? Like the things that you have control over versus what you don't. And also just thinking about how all of those things like have a relationship with each other. So like while you think about like your micro system, right? Your individual family, your routines. Like, see, Debbie, you're so like you have to teach your lines more. I had more of a like thinking about as a principal, like of managing the teachers instead of the student learning aspect of it. So just thinking about those like, school schedule, teacher schedules, school board, district policies, those type of things. And then just trying to figure out how those all work together.
Well, and I think that the big thing that Bronfenbrenner points out is that anything that happens in one of those systems impacts the others, right?
Yeah.
And the child is at the center of that system. And that's he was the great proponent and was one of the people that started Head Start and things like that for, the whole movement. It was very, very well known in education and in that area. But it's just, and I'm pretty sure, I think in that presentation I shared about some of the schools that I'd been working with when I was at St. Xavier and doing work with Big Shoulders and the kinds of examples that I found there. But it's important, I think, for leaders to, you really have to know those different systems and you have to be very sensitive to them. because all of those impact the child in the end. And so when something happens, when you think about when COVID happened at a much higher level in that system and the impact it had all along, or if something's happening in students' home life, then they can't really handle what's happening in the classroom. So I think putting the idea that these children operate in a system and they can be nurtured or be victims in there, I think he's got some interesting things that as a leader, you can really have to make sure that you keep remembering that all those different levels, all those different systems have huge impact on the what your ultimate goal is to the education of children, right?
Well, yeah, and we talked about how like what can we do? Like what does the school leaders, teachers, like what do we have control over that affects these different aspects of, feeding into the child,
So it
and
starts
so
with the awareness and then what can you control? Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Sounds
Yep.
good. Do you have any thoughts, Meredith?
Poor man is sick.
I'm
Oh,
sick. I have lots
oh,
of thoughts. I'm
oh,
just
no, we won't
living
bother you.
your
Don't
life.
know. I'm sorry. Well, thank you for sitting there and listening to us. I went through that a couple of days ago, so bravo to you for even being here. So,
I appreciate that.
okay, yeah, just listen. Okay, all right. Go ahead with your next conversation. I'll come back to you later.
Other things on so
Of
Michael,
course we are.
yeah, so Michael is Saturday for sure. Okay.
I'll give my vote.
Um, but if we were to go back to the ecological systems theory, I kind of made a note that the one of the key takeaways was that child development doesn't occur in isolation. I said, but rather with a complex system of interconnected environments, and how this definitely influences students' academics, their social, emotional, and their behavioral development, and how that all ties in together. And that changes or stressors in one system can directly or indirectly affect a child's learning and their well-being. So those are some of the notes I took on that one. And that as a teacher or an educator, we have to look beyond the classroom instruction when addressing student needs, because we have to look again at the whole picture, looking at, their background, their family life, any situations that are going on, because there's so much that goes into that child development and what their needs are. So his that whole like graph was interesting to see like the layers of it, but I had to like go over it a lot because at first I wasn't understanding it. Um,
Yeah,
so
it's a complex theory, but it's
super
when you look
complex.
at it through the lens of leadership, it opens your eyes to the fact that changes at any one of those levels have a
Yeah.
ripple effect
Yeah.
on the ultimate goal of the child being, that's the person who really gets impacted the most.
Yes.
And if,
Um,
if there are changes in the family, if there are changes in the local community, if there are changes, you think about COVID, changes at a very macro level, right? So
right. Oh my God.
those things are important, and for his time and when he started working and sharing that kind of thing, it was kind of an aha moment for a lot of people. Um, and he was a great proponent of early education, like with Head Start and things like that. Um, and it's his work is pretty classical. Did you any of you study it in your undergrad?
It didn't, I don't know, maybe I had because I was like trying
No.
to think if this rang a bell at all. But then there was that part of like touching on the three different schools too. And or was that the next? I'm trying to think what I was, oh yeah, the three different schools. And again, like what happens if you don't recognize like what could happen when you don't look at any changes that are going on, when demographics and poverty and knowing what's happening within a family, and you kind of keep doing things exactly the same, and you're not flexible with what's changing and how to adapt to that, and how horrible that can be and what can go wrong in that scenario.
Yeah, and those three schools that I talked about were literally schools that I worked with when I was at St. Xavier. I mean, they're real live examples of and non-examples, of how it impacts and what can happen. Yeah, it's really important to think about that, as leaders and to keep that kind of on the forefront. Because things are changing all the time, as the speakers earlier said, even I think, Jacob kind of talked about it in the most honest way, where, in the period of the time that they won that great award, that the culture had changed in his school, right? And then I think was it Hank that talked about, who was the one that talked about gossiping? No, that was Demetrius. Yeah, that talked about having a problem with gossiping, I think, was it? Or no, it was Hank.
No, it was the one from
It was Jake.
Nashville, Tennessee, the Nashville,
Jake.
Tennessee
Yeah, that was
principal.
Hank. Yeah, that talked
Yeah,
about the problem that they had with gossiping, and they had to deal with that first. So when you look at all these different systems, and when there are issues in the systems, and I think both Julie and Michelle put it pretty clearly, that when there is a problem showing up with children, a lot of times we have to start looking at the adults. Whether it's the family, whether it's the faculty, whether it's the staff, whether it's the community, or the broader picture. But they were both, and I think it was Michelle that really emphasized it, said that, when you're seeing an issue with children, particularly something like, her example, I think, was behavior, um, start looking at the adults and what's happening, and what's happening with that child. And I think keeping that lens is, the further you go up in leadership, it's harder to keep that lens. I think, when you're in a classroom or when you're dealing one-on-one with students, you can hang on to that a little tighter. But I think, one of the other groups was talking about kind of being removed from students and doing things now more at an administrative level. You can't lose that lens, that your ultimate goal is to take care of those children, right? And be aware of what's happening to them. So food for thought. Food for thought. Okay. You guys need about another, what, 5-10 minutes?
5 more minutes. Yeah, we were going to talk about the article. We had that left.
Okay, let me check with the others. I'll probably call you back between 7 and 7:05. Let me see how the other darlings are doing.
Sounds good.
Okay.
I personally think it really impacted them professionally. There was one leader who just could not make relationships with her team. Still to this day seems, to be honest with you, a little clueless that it has anything to do with her leadership, and thinks it's all kind of just going to throw out all the reasons, right? Oh, Sarah C there's a different Sarah C.
Like, hey,
sorry.
me in this.
Well, at school, it's Sarah K, Sarah C. Like, it gets a little bit confusing, and now you're a Sarah C. But she's dealing with personal issues. Like, she just never really saw her part in it, and that has not done well for her. So, yeah, you're
I
right.
find that also to be generational too. I'm seeing a lot of differences between like millennial teachers, elder millennial teachers, Gen Z teachers. Like they're in your upbringing and your life experiences and with some of those social emotional
for sure.
Like that's playing huge in what I see in my own school environment.
I think that's right on too.
Yeah.
Particularly with life experiences lately, I have a very similar vibe about that. But yeah. I liked seriously, I didn't, did you?
Oh, I was just like thinking about how when I first started teaching, and I had a group, I was a fifth grade teacher, and I had one student that would always, like, anytime he would correct me with like just like the simple, like the dumbest things. Like, Mrs. Collins, you didn't put a capital, that should be a capital letter. Like, Mrs. Collins, that's not the right page. Mrs. Collins, are you sure that was the page that was supposed to, no, it's supposed to be this. You wrote the wrong number on the board, whatever it may be. And I remember at first I was so angry and frustrated with this student because I was like, why do you keep calling me out? Like, what did I do to you?
I had to deserve
You keep
this.
like attacking me in this. And I went home, and I was still living at home, and my older brother was living at home, and my older brother is a genius and gifted in all areas, and he was that kid. And he was like, he was like, don't take it personally. It's not a gotcha. They just want to make sure that they heard you correctly, and that, like, and what they heard and
They're
what
doing.
you're showing on the board, or writing on the doc camera or whatever it is, when it's not matching, they get really worried that they are wrong. And he was like, so don't take it personally. He was like, really think about how you could model making a mistake. He was like, especially for gifted students, they feel like they should get it right away all the time. And he was like, there will always be a subject or something will come up in their education where it's not going to come as easy for them. And he's like, and they will completely break down and it'll be the end of the world for them. He's like, so if more educators can just model that whole, like, we hear it, everybody makes mistakes. He's like, but you have to show, like, yes, you made a mistake. Now, how do you respond to that? Like, everybody makes mistakes, yes, but we don't just like plow through. Like, we have to respond to
Pretend
it. So,
it
like,
didn't
how can you
happen.
respond to it appropriately? And then he was like, and think about how you can sit with that child and be like, okay, thank you for helping our class make sure that what I'm saying and what I'm showing match to help everybody's learning. But how can we do this in a way that is respectful for all? And he's like, because that will help them when they get into the workplace. And
That's
similar
true.
things happen with their boss. He's like, otherwise they're going to go through life thinking that that's okay and fine. And he's like, it's not. You can't continuously like correct people like that. And there's just a way, there's a finesse to doing it. And he's like, so help that child, figure out how to do that. And if I hadn't gotten that from him, I think I would have gone throughout the rest of my first year just being like so angry at this child, even though that child was so innocent and what they were correcting me on. And it helped just bring in that understanding of like, yes, we're teachers and we're presenting this, and we are donning the hat of being the expert on that, but like we're not perfect just because we're supposed to be the one that knows everything. Like, we don't know everything and we're not perfect humans, and the more we model that for kids, the more that they'll be accepting of that as they grow, and the kinder our world will be.
Did you thank your brother?
I did. I did thank my brother. My brother helped me in so many different ways throughout education, just like with his education experience and what it was like for him, being he always is. He's just the smartest one in the room at all times. And just being like seeing how he faltered in education, and actually how like standard education really he didn't graduate college. He does not have a college degree. And because traditional schooling really did not do well for him. He just did not. He breaks the mold and thinks outside of the box. He's a wildly successful human being. He programs computers and writes software code all the time, and is in charge of like a whole slew of, an entire section of a company to help write code. And so he's an incredibly successful human, but
yeah, he's flourishing. It's
yes.
Great example. Okay. A couple of more minutes and I'll be calling you all back, okay?
Okay.
I don't know.
Yeah.
We were
Are
just
you
talking
guys-
about our surveys.
Yes.
And I was saying I gave
No
it
one's
to
giving back to us.
yeah, we're waiting for them back, but I gave it to two of my admin because we only have three, and the other one is my superintendent, and I said I'm too nervous to give it to him.
Well, you can always blame me. I've got this grouchy, crazy professor, and she's
Oh,
going to be
she's
really
so
upset. And she's going to
grouchy.
take all these points off. So please, please save me from this crazy woman. I'm happy to wear the black hat. Anytime. Anytime. Okay. So I'm assuming you're just about finished?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll be calling you back in about 2 or 3 minutes.
Okay.
Meredith, are you okay?
I'm really not.
Oh, poor baby. Poor baby.
I'm just gonna chill.
It's okay. Okay.
Are you guys hoping to, are you guys looking into becoming principals for like the following school year or?
Not me. I'm
Yes.
leaving. Okay. You're back. We're 2/3 of the way through the night. You'll make it. Hang in there. Anything particularly exciting from your small group conversations that you wanted to share or comment on or ask questions about? So how many of you really loved that article?
The article itself is a little dry, but our conversation focused a lot about it's so clear when you think about people that you worked with or people in leadership positions. Like there was a scenario that like kind of I brought up about like what if somebody's so great at curriculum, so great at data analysis, and really knows something in and out, but yet people don't trust them. There isn't a very good rapport.
Mhm.
Like somebody can be very high in an area, there's that competence, but maybe their character, the way that they present themselves or they're perceived by others is low. And that's where it's like finding that fine balance. And that's where I was saying to the girls in my group, like, at this age, at my age and my years of teaching, I kind of know my strengths, but I know my weaknesses. And I know that maybe there's strong parts of my character, but then there's other things in my comp that I worry about. The being structured, organized, knowing the new job, walking into a new job and feeling like you know it and you can do it well. And I feel like for me, it would be finding that fine balance as well. So I thought that that article was very interesting, that you don't necessarily want competence to be the highest and have no and that your character's weak, but you also don't want it to be the other way either. So you have to find a good middle ground somehow, and that's kind of my takeaway from the article.
And generally, I mean, even in schools, when we start focusing on developing our character, the competence usually rises, right? Because it's kind of almost like a natural output, right? We see that in the informal data that we gather from different schools that implement character education. That it often happens that they start a character education program and they're working on all these things, the culture and the character and the core values and the behavior and getting all of that in place and building that positive learning and supportive learning environment. And almost accidentally or just as a side effect, the academics starts to rise because if people are developing their own character, it becomes important to become competent, right? But you get people who are very, very competent in a task or a skill or a role, and if they're lacking in character, it's not gonna be very pretty. Yeah. Any other comments or questions or takeaways or anything still kind of lingering from the first part of the evening? You're just all in countdown mode, I think. Yeah. That's senioritis. I know. It's one of the reasons that I just love teaching this class. Okay, let's take 12 minutes of a break. I'm going to put you in your breakout rooms first, then you can turn off your cameras, take a break. I've opened the ethical dilemma portion up for Canvas. Got an interesting one for tonight, so then you will move into your discussions once you've got that all figured out. Okay? So back to your breakout rooms and then take a break.
Okay, why don't I have this in my Google Doc? That's just silly. Framework. Okay. Give me that. Okay, to summarize. I'm obsessed with Danny Go right now, and like it's all I can hear is
What is that?
Danny Go.
I don't think I know that one.
It's basically like educational club music for kids.
Oh,
Yep. He has a lot of brain breaks and stuff. It's really cute.
Like always around our entire building. If you walk down our primary hallway, there's at least one TV on that has Danny Go brain breaks
Oh
going.
yeah.
okay. To summarize, director of SPED,
Yeah.
third DUI,
Yeah.
goes to jail, but because of his goodness, for lack of better words, he is a work release program candidate, and he is asking if he can stay at his job in the school district. Is that accurate?
Yes.
Mhm.
I don't have your emails. Do you guys want it?
Yeah. Here,
Here,
I'll put it in the chat. I'll put
you
mine in the
too.
chat.
Is the first one, what is our initial thought?
Yeah. Yes.
I
Holy
just want you to
crap.
know, this is really testing my character. I just want you to know that.
Meanwhile, I'm barely taking it seriously because this was literally my childhood. The police showing up at 1 o'clock in the morning. Is your mother home?
Come with me.
Yeah.
Okay. I sent it to you.
Thank you.
You as well. Well,
I don't think I don't think that is a good idea.
I don't either.
It's my first thought.
I don't either. My
Also, darling, not to get too personal, but I also have a very similar upbringing with the father and alcoholism, but I am struggling. I don't think it's a good idea. That is my initial reaction.
Yeah, it's one of those things where you wonder, like, does someone's reputation supersede their bad choices? If they're getting help, how do you want that around? Like, was he drinking at work? Was it only at home? Like,
Good questions we can ask.
I will put that in as soon as I can get this shared. Okay. I don't know why this is so hard for me right now. Okay. Heck.
Not working?
Like, it keeps like deleting it, and then I'm so irritated. No one wants to. Wanted to add my therapist. No, she doesn't need that. Just because I have her email
Although I
doesn't.
might like her insights on it.
Yeah, no.
I know, actually, she would have a lot of interesting things to say. I love my therapist. She's so funny.
Okay. While we're chatting, we have, so wait, are we all thinking that? Darlene, I know you're working and I'm making you multitask. So Sarah, you agree that you were like, I don't think it's going to work. What was that, your initial?
Yeah, my initial is like, no, sorry.
Darlene, was that yours or you were on the fence?
I would take it under consideration.
Okay. That's a good initial thought.
I also would not want to make the decision all by myself.
No.
Late night with the school board, for sure.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, no.
I know, like, alcoholism is a disease.
I'm having a
And
situation, so I'm going to put it in the chat.
Okay.
Sorry. Okay.
but I also have to think of as the superintendent, you're thinking of the reputation of the entire district and how things are going to be viewed by the community.
Unfortunately, yeah.
And it's like, while I believe that alcoholism is a disease, that's still like a very hot topic, even after all of these years of, studies being done with addiction. And I think there's still so much stigma attached to it, which is unfortunate. Like, I don't like it. Don't like the fact that there is, but I don't think this is like a good time to educate people on addiction and
silliest one, that we have to do.
Yes.
All right. Mr. Kidder hopefully is sincere about wanting to recover, but he's also like interested in I don't know, saving face and keeping his job.
Mhm.
And he's probably also, worried about the unknown, like if he's not able to do this work release.
I would say, can the staff and students trust Mr. Kidder to, can
Mm-hmm.
can he effectively do the job? Can he still have that trust, especially with
Yeah.
staff? I mean, I'm assuming the community would find out at some point, right? Like,
Yeah, it doesn't, I mean, everyone reads the like, we talk, I feel like all at the lunch table, it's always bringing up the scanner.
Yeah, the police.
What parents said, what names do we recognize in the scanner?
that's so funny. No, I used to live in a small town, and in Rochelle. Do you know where that is? It's
Yeah.
like middle of nowhere. I was not built to live out that far from civilization. But we lived out there for 4 years when we first got married because my husband got a job in 2010 and it was like impossible to get a job. Or 2009 actually. And I got pulled over on this street it was a cornfield street and they made it 25 to build homes, but then the economy crashed, So they didn't build homes, but it was still at 25 and I'm cruising down this road at like 40 on a cornfield road with no one around and a state trooper pulls
Oh
me over.
man,
They
you
were
appeared in
like,
the scanner.
and I was on, yeah. So like people at church that following week were like, "Oh, we saw you in the." I'm like, "Oh my gosh, you've got to be kidding me!" It was horrible. I think I was going to student teach there too, like at the high school.
Of
I'm
course.
also right next to cornfields. It was like the worst.
All
All
right.
right.
When
Are
we
there
think about
questions?
values, virtues, beliefs that are impacting perceptions, um,
Thanks. Safety.
mhm. Say like safety and trustworthiness. Um,
I would say, I can move.
and integrity, right? Because he's
Yeah.
lost that integrity because he hasn't done the right thing when people aren't watching and then he gets caught. So
Yeah.
it like makes me think like, has anything happened at work if he's having these issues that just hasn't been caught or hasn't led to, an incident yet?
And didn't it say like he thought the law was unfair or
He
something?
did.
Yes. Yeah, it did.
Um,
And I don't know, I can't think what this would be, but what would it be is you're in prison each night and you're at school each day. What
yeah,
is that?
I can't wrap my head around that. It's just too wild. What?
All right.
All right.
Focus on the essentials, ignore the noise. We need to focus on student safety, right?
Can he effectively lead a school? Right. Like, can he actually effectively do his job in this situation? Right.
Yeah. And like legality. Is
Yeah.
it legal for him to work in a school?
Recognize and name biases, I would say.
That's probably a better way.
Mhm.
And then have students or staff been negatively
And the title
impacted.
does say drunkenness, so it would have been
Yes,
That's true.
it does say drunkenness or disease. But are there other questions that you feel like were key questions to ask ourselves as we're like analyzing this?
I'm trying to think.
I think so far
Any,
those are good. We might have more questions that pop up as we continue through.
I
Okay.
guess any past experience or like any past complaints. I mean, I know he's adored by he's been there so long and all that, but has there been any complaints or something like that?
Mhm.
Yeah, that's worth noting.
Question has anyone questioned anything in the past?
And then this is interesting. He was not sure when it all, because I was wondering, like, how long was the duration of this? Like, So he's been a teacher for 20 years. Then he's been holding the position as the special ed director for 4 years. He was not sure when it all had started, but the pressures of the job and an unstable marriage had been a lot to handle on a daily basis. So that's when he got in the habit of stopping at a local tavern. Um, and then I don't know I'm curious about the duration, like how much time has gone by because he had two arrests previously.
Hmm.
I wondered like over the span of what, like a couple weeks, couple months. Like I wonder how maybe that's not a
Maybe
big
those are
deal.
questions we can
I
add,
was gonna
but
say add that to the question.
Like I'm
um
curious how long this has been going on because if this was something that was recent, it's not a part, this hasn't been going on for very long, then chances are that yes, he could probably get some help, go to AA, use that district. They talked about the employee assistance benefit program, which would happen over the summer, and they would probably support that. But we also don't know, has this been going on for years? Like how long? So if he's been holding this position for 4 years, yeah, like has this been 3 years? Is this a year? Like I'm so curious to know that. I don't
I
know.
guess I'm
or
also
when did
thinking, oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, didn't it say somewhere that this was the third time of driving under the influence?
Yes, but third time
Yeah.
in what time frame?
Right. So when was the
Well, they
first
never
time?
said.
Right. So
And
when
they didn't say. And it sounds like when Dr. Wang wanted to talk to him, like, hey, what's going on? Like, what brought all this on? That's when like, why would he allow himself to be put in this situation? And that's when he revealed that he finally admitted to himself that yes, he is an alcoholic and he's not sure when it all had started. But the pressures of the job and the marriage started to get to him. But now he's been doing this job for 4 years. So you tell me, like, is this something though that has been going on really long? Like, and now she might not be confident that he could get his act together to uphold his job for the next year because he may fall into these habits again. I don't know.
well, maybe how much time has passed from each
Or like, what has the duration of his, we call them arrests
Yeah, I think
conviction?
so. Or yeah.
or DUIs? Yeah, I wasn't sure how they had worded that.
Um,
I also just wondered too, like, why not just do the 6 week program right away?
Because I think doesn't he have to do the 3 months
Oh
of,
yeah, he does but I think part of that is like if the school and Dr. Wang like approve of this um work release program. Because like a company or a school like has to approve that they're willing to still allow the employee to do that. Because they could easily, well, I guess depends on what's in their contract of like how this all would pan out. But like I would think that they also have the right to like release him or put him on a temporary leave or something like that.
Mhm. That's that's interesting. Is that one of our scenarios? Is that he would be encouraged to take a leave? Like even
We
though
could,
they would support him going to AA, support him doing that program over the summer, but would they maybe say, well, we encourage you to take a leave for the beginning of the year just to ensure that you have, let's say, remained sober and have shown like having proof that he's getting his way? Like, should he have to prove that? I don't know.
yeah, I guess that's kind of,
well,
I'm unsure on that too, because it's like this didn't happen at work. This didn't
No.
happen like, on company grounds. So I guess, I don't know. Hence the reason it's an ethical dilemma, I guess.
Mhm.
well, it's also something another question I was kind of thinking about is this disease or addiction, or is it a disease or is it or a
He
misconduct
does claim to
consequences?
be an addict or have an addiction when he goes to the AA meeting.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Like alcoholism is a disease.
and he says he's an alcoholic. For one of the questions I put, is there any policy on arrests for staff members and um, eligibility to continue working? Is that something that we're wondering?
Yeah. Yeah, like can you still hold your job with this? Because I just feel like I don't know if this would affect like other types of jobs, but I just feel like in education,
I
we're
think
often held to like such a higher standard.
Yeah.
So I just wonder like what
Right.
that
And what message does
cause.
this send to kids about drinking and driving?
that's what I was just adding to the questions. What message does this send to like
Yeah,
staff,
that's why I think there would be like
students, the
community
community?
if yeah, like what Gabby was saying before, like what's the community impact gonna look like?
Yeah.
So that's what I've been sitting here thinking about. I was gonna throw it out and be like the annoying person, but like it says my internet is unstable, so I apologize if it is.
It's
But
okay.
as a teacher, you are shaping, or as an educator, whatever your role is, to shape students. So if your public
Yes,
image is
image.
that you're
Mhm.
making bad decisions, are parents going to want you around their children?
Mhm.
But it doesn't matter. It happened on his private in his private life.
Mhm.
So many questions.
Hmm.
But if I'm thinking as a community member, I would also have a lot of questions, and I don't know if I'd want them near or teaching.
Right. And that's where we talk about like, well, what would the community expect? Like when we get to that phase 3 later,
Yeah.
like what would be a decision that as a profession we would expect? What would the community expect? So yeah, we'll get there. Um, I'm trying to think what else we could touch
And
on.
if the district supports him in any way, how are they going to ensure accountability?
Well, that's just it. That's what I'm wondering is like how is that measured? How do you prove that yes, recognize I have a disease or I'm in, that somebody has an alcohol problem. They're willing to go through steps of AA, let's say.
Rehab restoration rehabilitation plan in place with check-ins so that he can come back to work. That would be my choice. Is that like he's placed on leave, they make sure that they're like following laws, like what are the laws and policies
He's not
taken?
doing a work release situation.
No, like no, put the brakes on that. Like hold on. Like let's figure this out because this seems not great. Um yeah.
Okay.
I would say also if he was an effective principal and this
He's a director of special ed or something.
Mhm.
oh okay he was, I'll just say, effective at his job.
Yeah.
At his job, so if it was allowed and he was effective at his job throughout this time period, then there could be a restoration rehabilitation plan.
All right. Does your final decision differ from your initial reactions?
Yeah, I think it
Our
does.
initial reactions were, wow, this is a
I
heavy
know.
issue.
I just scrolled back like, whoa.
This is a lot. What was he thinking? Those are our initial reactions.
I was gonna say, can
So
I
I
write
think
down?
that as we thought through it, our compassion and empathy grew to allow for
That
him to
is
have
true.
a different option besides he keeps his job, he doesn't keep his job.
Okay. We were able to think through different avenues, options.
Granted. don't know what the laws say, so could all be for naught.
Yeah, exactly. How did your personal and professional ethics influence the final decision?
Option A is an option A moving forward with this work release program? Or am I wrong? Are we not saying it's on the table at all?
Well, so first we have to do the right decision based on what's best for
Oh,
students.
sorry, I missed that
That's
one.
okay.
Yeah.
I know you're so eager. I guess
I'm really struggling here.
Me too.
because I mean he's really fabulous at his job. Obviously, he is doing good things for students, but if he's out there breaking the law, he cannot continue to do those things. So maybe what's
It
right
just
for
makes me
students
question
is,
his decision making
yeah, it is.
judgment.
So we're getting agree that what's best for students is dismissal.
Oh, I just think of all the good work a sped director could do for students and programs.
Well, maybe he has a person in a leadership program who is going to be a new administrator that they can hire in his place.
That is optimistic.
You know, I'm trying. I worked on that in therapy today, being optimistic and looking at the positive. Okay, so option A would be to cut ties with him and dismiss him.
That's what I was thinking.
Yep. Um,
And not to keep going back to the students, but I think ultimately it's still, even if he made the best decision making around special education and supports and services, this significant choice will impact adults around him. Like I just think there's going to be a lack of trust. There's going to be people out always questioning, and I just don't know how you bring people forward and align kind of with yourself as a leader if people kind of lost that potential respect and trust, and I don't know.
I don't think as a leader you can expect your staff that work under you to make best choices and make these ethical decisions and bring their morals and values and beliefs into their decision making if you're not doing the same.
Yeah, agreed. I think, Darlene, you're writing what I had in my head, but then paid administrative leaves and get benefits to get better and assess the duties. Yep.
You like my seat?
I do.
That's what I was thinking. I do think he really needs to work on himself and go through. I like the paid administrative idea so he can have his EAP benefits.
So
covered
you're
program.
showing a kindness for the reputation he's built,
Yeah.
but also not letting him interact or interfere with anything at the school, which I think would make the community happy. And I'm sure that in the course of the 3 months that he would be off, plus that
Summer.
6 weeks in the summer, someone can step in.
Yeah, and plus
End
I
of the
think
school year
I like
anyway.
the fact that you're obviously not guaranteeing, like we're not
Mhm.
getting so creative that he gets to come back, that there has to be some sort of reevaluation period.
Having earned their respect and support during his 20 years service to the district as a classroom teacher, as well as a chairperson of several special assignments. I'm not sure what that means, but so yeah, it sounds like he's definitely been either within the district for a while or just in education and overall in general for 20 plus years.
Yeah. Well, it said like Dr. Wang um supported his appointment and his values, so they've known each other like as colleagues for a long
She's
time.
the one that supported him originally to get that position when somebody retired.
Yeah,
Yes.
I put personal loyalty or professional pressures like emotions or interest
Yeah.
Dr. Wang
Yeah,
because
I saw that. That's good.
I mean that's hard. Um, I think for Community. I'm gonna put trust. I think is a huge one. Safety, ethical expectations, ethical lead. Yeah, ethical expectations. Do we think like staff?
Yeah, I mean, like going to what Beth was saying, like, as a
Credibility.
coworker, like you kind of look at them in a different light.
You might think of them different credibility of what you thought of them before now may change. So I'll put staff and just
So the staff might have a tarnished um, view of him now. They can't look at him the same.
well, like leadership credibility now.
Yeah.
Like they might
Hmm. Yeah, they
was
might like look at him and like be thinking, this is a leader, this is who I'm supposed to be looking up to, but
And this all
you
goes
know,
back to like it's not the first time, it's the third time. This has happened 3 times now. And that
hmm
you guys said that speaks volumes. Like that says a lot. Um,
and no mention of trying to get help prior, I don't think.
no. Right.
What happens if I talk?
you're
Right now
good.
you're good.
We can
Okay, I'm
hear
gonna
you.
say
You're a
something.
little, yeah, go.
It said I was unstable. Okay.
Oh
Uh, this goes back to the questions, but I have a question about the timeline of when he started to get help
no. Uh-huh.
versus the timeline of
Three Russ.
and
Uh-huh.
knowing he was going to get in trouble and how it could affect his
Right.
job.
And we were saying that too, like before, like where we were able to hear you again, was that like, why wasn't he seeking any kind of help after the first arrest or the second? He's now only wanting to receive help after having that potential like prison time for 3 months and looking to do AA and help over the summer with that program. So it's like he's looking to get help after the fact, but wasn't recognizing that maybe he should have tried to seek help earlier.
What I was also just thinking too, I was rereading to kind of think about what Beth was just saying.
Mhm.
He mentions that he felt or he like blamed the law because he felt like it was like too strict.
Or
Something
bad luck?
about like,
Was it bad luck that he thought it was?
what did he say? It was something like he made it almost like political. He said,
Oh,
okay, I found it. It's towards the end of the first page. He
oh, after,
says
yeah.
he had a couple of drinks, but was certainly able to drive. He really felt that he was doing, or that he was not doing anything wrong, and that the law was unfair, too strict, and the result of political pressure groups. So that's just kind of an interesting statement, I feel. Like, doesn't sound like somebody who's like
Yeah.
truly wanting help. I
Yeah.
don't know.
And that he
It
wasn't doing
almost seems,
anything wrong because
yeah,
They're
behind
not
the
in the
wall.
wrong.
Mhm.
yeah, like almost like he's invincible kind of mindset.
Mhm. He's
And
smart.
then Mary, you had mentioned this before about like this doing it over the summer, but he says this would involve the 6 weeks during the summer, which also happened to be his vacation allotment. So it's more just like he's seeking this as a convenience, like because he gets this time off kind of thing. That's what it seems to me.
Gotcha. Mm,
But it's just he's not, I feel like he's not showing himself as even ethical.
right.
Like to me, there's the values, the virtues there. It's like, what?
Hmm.
Hmm.
I'm
I'm
gonna
thinking
put that Dr. Wang also kind of holds she's like a key player in the moral issue. Would you guys agree?
Yeah.
yeah,
So she
Like
is.
she owns the moral, like she has to make the decision.
Yeah.
they've no, she's supported in the relationship.
Right.
And then
So then yeah, like early part of the fall. And then when the cohort thing, I was like, I can't, I'm not, I'm not also doing the cohort right now. I can't. So
We're finished with the ethical dilemma, Dr. Spellman.
Okay, so you finished all the pieces. You're way ahead of the other groups. So
okay.
way, way ahead. So chill for a little bit and I
Are
will
we gonna
call.
have time to talk about the video tonight, or is that more next week?
Which video?
The
The school environment video group project.
yeah.
To talk with to talk with me or talk with each other?
To talk with each other.
It depends on people finishing. It's already 8:03. You know, as I mentioned the first week, I couldn't guarantee we'd have time each week, so you might have to carve out time together at another time.
Okay.
We'll have to
'Cause,
see.
yeah, this leadership video focused on a vision for character education. That's the group one?
No.
Oh, that's a different thing. Okay.
What you're
This-
looking at, your group project is the one that's focused on a healthy and positive school
Oh,
environment.
that one. Okay, okay.
The video is due a lot later, I think. Let me get my lists out. Yeah, the video is not due until the 15th of February.
Okay.
So what's due this coming week is your pre and post, and then your plan for healthy environment is February 1st.
Okay.
Okay. All right, let me check on the others and see if I can nudge people along a little bit.
So these are some things I think about. I think about these things, but at the end of the day, do the people that make the decision have all this information, or do they take it in consideration when they're not showing themselves into the building?
Can I just interrupt and ask where you're at?
We are kind of around phase 3. We were finishing up phase 2 and moving on to phase 3.
Yeah, we're in the beginning of phase 3.
That's true. Yeah, we've got a few things in there.
Yeah.
All right, you might need to step it up a little bit because some groups are already finished.
Oh my.
Okay. Maybe we're just overanalyzing.
Okay, see what you can do in the next 5 minutes or so. All right.
Okay.
Okay.
It says what
option are we on? Option A.
Yeah, hot minute to get to
So I'm just really like if I can make that work, and I got some intel from somebody I know that works there that like they have an interim person right now because the person they hired quit mid-year, and that person replaced somebody who quit after 1 year the year prior. So I'm like, oh my God, if they could be like, hey, we'll take you if you can like start in April, and I'd be like, absolutely, I can.
Sure. Well, sending positive thoughts your way.
Thank you.
I'm taking
We are
it that you guys
obviously
are
done.
finished. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
We were just talking shop a little bit.
It's okay. We've got one group that's still in phase 3. So I
They
gave
were
them,
really struggling with this dilemma.
yeah, they
What a
were. They really
dilemma.
were. Yeah. So I told them I'd give them until 8:10. So
Do you ever give your answers, Dr. Spellman?
do I ever what?
You ever give your own answers to your ethical dilemma?
No. I comment on things, but
No.
that wouldn't be ethical.
I
Dr.
just
Spellman,
interested how people would choose things.
But I think every time, you know, and I'm kind of starting to rotate and change some of these, but every time we've done this one, it's been widely different the way people react. Really interesting. Yeah, widely different. I've had groups that came down hard and fast. Nope, 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 you know, all the way down, don't change their mind, he's fired. I've had other groups that go way into the, rehabilitating this person and the illness of alcoholism, and I've seen some real interesting exchanges. Um, and you probably appreciate this, but particularly when you've got a mixture in your group of perhaps someone who's a social worker
Yeah.
or a counselor,
Right.
and with a couple of high school teachers, where it's like, it can get a little, okay, let's calm down.
I think Darlene put her counselor hat right on.
But it does, it is nice to have a mixture in the groups because, and it also depends, and I think your group touched on it, it depends on people's lived experiences. So those of us who have lived with someone in a family that has alcoholism tend to have different views from others. And sometimes those views are, no tolerance, and sometimes those views are empathetic because they've loved the person who struggled with
Right.
this issue. So it's wildly interesting to me to really listen and watch all the different reactions and all the different, but I think the whole point of the exercise is not to come up with the right answer right now, but is to build your habit of looking at all of these different phases, of making sure you don't make these decisions alone, making sure you consider all the perspectives and who's impacted, and look at more than one option. Because, if you can develop that habit, that muscle memory, you're going to be a better leader, regardless of the role that you're in. Um, because it's not a one person job.
No.
None of these are. And I think Darlene, I think it was you that mentioned something about, it wasn't going to be a decision you'd make alone, you'd be with the school board all night kind of thing. But, it's amazing that sometimes, that used to not be the mentality in schools. I mean, I've seen it shift in my career from, I'm the boss and I'm in charge and I make the decisions from the superintendent on down. Um, and now we've learned sometimes in some places there's been some learning about the value of teams of leaders, right? And
Right.
looking at different perspectives. It just depends on how you build those teams.
Yeah.
A, a smart leader, a wise leader will build a team that's got people with various different strengths other than the strength that the leader has, so that people can balance each other, and so that there's that wisdom that comes from different backgrounds, different perspectives, and different strengths. I always make the comment that a really good leader surrounds himself or herself with people that are really smart and really good at a lot of different things that the leader knows is not their forte. And a really poor leader is one that surrounds himself with either yes men or people who all have the same perspective as he or she does.
Yeah.
And that second scenario usually ends up with a fire in
True.
the wastebasket. All
Dr.
right,
Spellman, I wanted to ask,
Mhm.
we were talking about how rigid we were like at the beginning of the program doing these ethical dilemmas. And I almost wondered if you're either planning or if you considered getting us like one of the same dilemmas that we did in 500 with the same people, see what we come up with, and then allow us to compare how we've changed in our perceptions of
That's
these
a
people.
cool idea. We could do that because I think I have all the records. I could dig
I
back.
bet you do.
I have
You're really
everything.
organized like I am. He was like, she's got him.
That's a really good idea. Maybe we'll do that one of these next 2 weeks. 3 weeks, yeah.
I don't even remember what we did for the
I
first
don't
one,
remember.
so it'd be a surprise for me anyway.
This is true. I also tend to
See our
have,
change of thinking, It could be
yeah, but
really
I also
cool.
tend to have more teacher-oriented um, dilemmas to start to get people on their, on their sea legs. But yeah, let me look back. I'm
Maybe
sure
even something from Dr. King in 535, like, just something from early on.
Yeah, I don't know if she keeps the records the way I do because I keep them for research, but
Mhm.
I have them all. So you've given me a project. Okay. It's a great thought. I will go back and look at that. Okay, I'm going to call everybody back before we all have to go to bed.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah.
thank you for playing with me for all of that. Um, what I want to do is just a couple of real quick reminders about things. I did send you all an email with the invitation to the alumni event on January 29th. Um, just when you have a chance, either drop me an email or send me a text. Let me know if you've registered to come. Um, we are hoping that you will all come if at all possible, because it is kind of our regular school night. It would be a tremendous opportunity for you, not only to just have time together to celebrate since you're almost at the end, but also to network and connect with a lot of other alumni that are already in leadership positions who'll be coming back. So it's might be a really smart place to be. Um, the other thing I wanted to just remember that your leadership virtues dispositions pre and post is due next Sunday evening. So I'm hoping you're on top of that and working with that. I know a couple of people said you're trying to chase down those surveys. So I would just use me as the bad guy. You know, you've got this terrible professor who is just really going to be really mean to you and you're not going to graduate, you know, because you got to get that in there. So um, thank you so much for your, attention and your grace with the speakers that we had today. I'm hoping that you felt it was worthwhile and that you learned something from them, because they're some of the top people in the country that really are making an impact with kids. And I'm hoping that between what we did last week, the resources that we have in both, this week's Canvas module and last week's, that will really help you with your team working on the project with, creating a safe and positive environment, which does also connect to character, and then your own individual videos that you'll be working on. So with 1 minute left, I'll stay on as long as anybody wants, but are there any questions that you have? Anything you want to chat about? Anything I can help with? Meredith needs to go and lay down. I was like that earlier in the week. God bless you. Go lay down, sweetheart. Okay. So anybody else have anything else I can help with? If not, have a good evening. Stay safe. I will see you 1 week from tonight. We'll be talking about AI. Okay. Bye-bye.
Good night.
Good night.